What happens when one of history's greatest military minds meets his fiercest opponents on a foggy battlefield? Join us as we unravel the genius tactics of Napoleon at the Battle of Austerlitz. Battle of Austerlitz was the first engagement of the War of the Third Coalition and one of Napoleon's greatest victories. The battle took place at Austerlitz in Moravia. Napoleon's 68,000 troops defeated almost 90,000 Russians and Austrians nominally under General Mikhail Kutuzov, forcing Austria to make peace with France and keeping Prussia temporarily out of the anti-French alliance. From 1803 to 1805, Napoleon was the master of Europe and he had only the British to fight. France could hope for total victory only by landing an army in the British Isles, while the British could defeat Napoleon only by forming a continental alliance against him. Napoleon began to prepare an invasion. He gathered nearly 2,000 ships between Brest and Antwerp and concentrated his Grande army at Boulogne. To cross the channel, however, the French had to have control of the sea. Still far inferior to the British Navy, the French fleet needed the help of the Spanish, and even then the two fleets together could not hope to defeat more than one of the British squadrons. Spain was induced to declare war on Great Britain in December 1804, and it was decided that French and Spanish squadrons, massed in the Antilles, should lure a British fleet into these waters and defeat it. This would make the balance roughly equal between the Franco-Spanish Navy and the British. A battle in the entrance to the channel could then be engaged with some chance of success. By this time, after 2 years of effort, the British had managed to organize a new continental coalition in which Austria, Russia, Sweden and Naples were grouped against France. Pursued by British Admiral Horatio Nelson and not daring to attack him, Villeneuve turned back toward Europe and took refuge in Cadiz on July 18, 1805. There the British blockaded the French fleet. Less than a week later, on July 24th, Napoleon ordered the Grande army from Boulogne to the Danube. Thus, even if the French had prevailed in the naval engagement to come, the battle would not have been followed by the invasion of England. Accused of cowardice by the angry Napoleon, Villeneuve resolved to run the blockade with the support of a Spanish squadron in order to reach Toulon. But on October 21st, 1805, he was attacked by Nelson off Cape Trafalgar. Nelson was killed in the battle, but the Franco-Spanish fleet was totally destroyed. The British had won a decisive victory, eliminating the danger of invasion and giving them complete freedom of movement at sea. Although Trafalgar spelled an end to France's naval ambitions, the War of the Third Coalition would be a resounding success for Napoleon. To some degree, Napoleon's campaign against Austria may be regarded as a measure of self-defense forced upon him by the formation of the anti-French alliance. The possibility of it had long been before the emperor, and as early as 1803 he had formulated a plan for a march on Vienna through the valley of the Danube. When it became clear that Villeneuve had failed in his purpose of securing the command of the channel, Napoleon initiated the transfer of his whole army to the Rhine frontier as the first step in its march to the Danube. The Austrians were not standing idle, and the outbreak of the campaign of 1805 was hastened by Vienna's desire to feed its own army and leave a bare country for Napoleon by securing the resources of Bavaria. Hey everyone, I hope you are enjoying the video so far. If you find this content helpful or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. And if you think others might enjoy this, feel free to share it with your friends and family. Thanks for your support, and let's get back to the video. It was also hoped that the Bavarians, with their army of 25,000 men, would join the Allies. In the latter hope, they were frustrated, and the Bavarians under Karl Philipp von Wrede slipped away to Würzburg. In the former, however, they were successful, and the destitution they left in their wake almost wrecked Napoleon's objectives. Austrian commander Karl Max march to Ulm was therefore a necessity of the situation. His continuance in this exposed position, if ill-advised against an adversary such as Napoleon, was at any rate the outcome of Mack's resolve that even if beaten, he would inflict crippling losses upon the French. Mack knew that the Russians would be late to arrive at a planned rendezvous near Passau, at the confluence of the Inn and the Danube. By constructing an entrenched camp at Ulm and concentrating all the available food within it, he expected Napoleon to invest and besiege him. He anticipated that in the devastated country his adversary would be compelled to separate and thus fall an easy prey to the 100,000 strong Russian army that had been pledged to assist him. For that blow, Mack had determined to make his own army the anvil, but this plan would not come to fruition. Napoleon's first orders had directed the French forces in Hanover to Würzburg, Auguste Frederick Louis Viesse de Marmont's corps in Holland to Mainz, and the Grenadier army to Lower Alsace. When Napoleon learned that Mack was in the Black Forest, he swung his own army to its left, began crossing the Rhine on September 25th, and passed through Württemberg and Franconia in columns which converged on Mack's rear. Mack, who was still at Ulm, awoke too late to his danger. Napoleon's forces began crossing the Danube around Donauwörth, 15 miles downstream from Ulm, on October 7, 1805. Uncertain of the Austrians' latest positions, Napoleon now extended his front along the Lech River, detaching one course toward Munich to contain the Russians should they appear. Despite bad weather, shortage of supplies, and clumsiness on the part of some of Napoleon's subordinates, in the course of Mack's encirclement, the Battle of Ulm was a spectacular French victory. Some 8,000 Austrians under Franz von Werneck surrendered near Heidenheim on October 19th, and the bulk of Mack's army was taken prisoner at, or soon after its capitulation at Ulm, concluded on October 20th. So vigorous was the pursuit of the escaping Austrians that only one division was able to join the Russians under Mikhail Kutuzov, who reached the rendezvous point at the inn in mid-October with fewer than 40,000 men, and who now retired as Napoleon advanced. Leaving Michel Ney to drive the Archduke John from Tyrol, Napoleon entered Vienna on November 13th. The Archduke Charles, who had been campaigning against Marshal Andre Massena in Italy, was recalled to Austria but came too late to defend Vienna and withdrew into Hungary. Napoleon's position soon became critical, demanding an early victory if he was not to be overwhelmed. A second Russian army had joined Kutuzov and the Austrians at Olmütz, making the force there 90,000 strong, and the French right flank was menaced by the approach of the Austrian Archduke Charles with 80,000 men. Prompt success was necessary also to avert the intervention of Prussia. Jean-Baptiste Bernardot's Frenchmen from Hanover had violated Prussian neutrality with a march across Ansbach, and there was concern that Prussia would respond by siding with the Allies. Napoleon halted his extended advance at Brunn. His 100,000 men were deposed over a distance of 90 miles to observe the opposing forces while he waited for the chance to concentrate against either Kutuzov or Charles to fight a decisive battle. Welcoming Kutuzov's ill-advised advance in the last days of November, Napoleon encouraged him to seek battle by retiring a short distance to adopt a position 7 miles southeast of Brunn, where he succeeded in quickly and secretly concentrating as many as 73,000 men behind the Goldbach River. His tactics were masterly, for he left his right flank unstrengthened to tempt the Russian forces to strike at his virtually uncovered line of supply and communication with Vienna. While Napoleon bivouacked west of the Goldbach, the Allies, holding near Austerlitz, formed up in the valleys east of the Pratzen Heights. Napoleon, having determined to fight, called up every available battalion. Marshal Louis Davout's veteran 3rd Corps arrived from Vienna late on the night of December 1st, after a forced march that had covered nearly 70 miles in 48 hours. The Allied plan was to attack Napoleon's right and cut him off from Vienna, and the Allies' advance guard began, before dark on December 1st, to skirmish toward Telnitz. At that moment, Napoleon was in the midst of his troops, thousands of whom had made their bivouac straw into torches. Allied scouts observed the glare and took it to be the result of a fire that had been lit up to signal a retreat. This confirmed them in the impression which Napoleon's calculated timidity had given. Thus encouraged, those who desired an immediate battle soon gained the upper hand in the council of Tsar Alexander I and Emperor Francis I of Austria. The Allied attack orders for December 2nd divided the Austro-Russian army into 5 columns and a reserve and assigned the following tasks. The first and second columns to move southwestward behind the Prasen heights toward Telnice and Sokolnice. The third to cross the southern end of the plateau and come into line on the right of the first two. The fourth on the right of the third to advance toward Kobelnice. An Austrian advance guard preceded the first and second columns. Farther still on the right of the fifth column was to hold the northern part of the plateau, south of the Brunn-Olmütz road. Across the road itself was the Russian corps of Prince Bagration, and in the rear of Liechtenstein's corps was the reserve. Thus, the farther the 4 main columns penetrated into the French right wing, the wider would the gap become between Bagration and Collorat, and Liechtenstein's squadrons could not form a serious obstacle to a heavy attack of Napoleon's center. The whole plan was based upon defective information and preconceived ideas that proved to be wholly incorrect. Napoleon, displaying immense faith in the capabilities of his troops, entrusted nearly half of his line of battle to a single division of Marshal Nicolas Soult's corps, which was to be supported by Davout. The ground which this thin line was to hold against 3 columns of the enemy was marshy and densely intersected by obstacles. In addition, the third corps was arguably the best in the Grande Army, while its leader, Davout, was perhaps the ablest of all of Napoleon's marshals. The rest of the army formed in the center and left. This was composed of Soult's corps with Bernadotte in second line. On the left, around a fortified hill that the French had dubbed the Santon, was Jean Lane's corps, supported by the cavalry reserve under Joachim Murat. This general reserve consisted of the Imperial Guard and Nicolas Oudinot's grenadiers. Before dawn on December 2nd, the Allied attack was begun by the first 3 columns, which moved down from their camps behind the Pratzen Plateau toward Telnice and Sokolnice. The Austrian advance guard engaged at daybreak and the French in Telnice made a vigorous defense. Both parties were reinforced and Legrand fulfilled his mission of drawing upon himself the whole weight of the Allied attack. The contest was long and hard fought, but the Russians gradually drove back Legrand and a part of Davout's corps. Numerous attacks were made by both of infantry and cavalry, and by the successive arrival of reinforcements, each side in turn received fresh initiative. Finally, at about 10 am, the Allies were in possession of the villages on Golbach from Sokolnice southward. Davout's line of battle had reformed more than a mile to the rear of its initial position. It still, however, maintained contact with the French center on the Golbach at Kobelnice. Between these two lines, the fighting continued almost until the close of the battle. With 12,500 troops, Davout held in front of him more than 40,000 of the enemy. In the center, confusion among the Allied staff had delayed the 4th column, the line of march of which was crossed by Liechtenstein's cavalry moving in the opposite direction. The objective of this column was Kobelnice, and the 2 emperors, Francis I of Austria and Alexander I of Austria, and Kutuzov accompanied it. The delay had, however, opened a gap between Collorat and the 3rd column on his left. It was toward this gap and the denuded Pratzen Plateau that Napoleon sent forward Louis Saint-Hilaire's division of Soult's corps for the decisive attack. Kutuzov was pursuing this march to the southwest when he was surprised by the swift advance of Soult's men on the plateau itself. Napoleon had here doubled the force of the Allies. Kutuzov, however, displayed great energy, shifted united his forces to his right and called up his reserves. The French did not win the plateau without an intense struggle. Saint Hilaire's division was fiercely engaged by Colorad's column, and General Mikhail Milo Radovich opposed the left center under Dominique Vendôme. However, the French leaders were two of the best fighting generals in their army. The rearmost troops of the Russian second column, not yet committed to the fight on the Goldback, made a bold counterstroke against Saint Hilaire's right flank, but were repulsed, and Soult now turned to relieve the pressure on Davout. The Russians in Sokolny surrendered. An opportune cavalry charge shook the morale of the Allied left, and the Pratzen Heights were now in full possession of the French. Even the Russian guard failed to shake Vendôme's hold. In the meanwhile, Lanes and Murat had been engaged in the defense of the Santon. Here the Allied leaders displayed great vigor, but they were unable to drive back the French. The cavalry charges in this quarter were among the most celebrated of the Napoleonic era, and François-Étienne Kellerman, the hero of Marengo, distinguished himself against the cavalry of Liechtenstein's command. The French not only held their ground but steadily advanced and eventually forced back the Allies on Austerlitz, thereby barring their retreat on Olmütz. The last serious attempt of the Allies in the center led to some of the hardest fighting of the day. The Russian Imperial Guard under the Grand Duke Constantine pressed closely upon Saint Hilaire and Vendôme on the plateau and only gave away when the French Guard and the Grenadiers came into action. After the Russian Chevalier Guards had been routed by Marshal Jean-Baptiste Bessières and the Guard Cavalry, the Allies had no more hope of victory. Orders had already been sent to Frederick Wilhelm von Buxhoveden, who commanded the three columns engaged against Davout, to retreat on Austerlitz. No further attempt was made on the plateau, which was held by the French from Pratzen to the Olmütz road. The Allied army was cut in two, and the confused struggle of the three Russian columns on the Goldback was one for survival only. The fighting in Telnice was perhaps the hardest of the whole battle, but the inevitable retreat, every part of which was now under the fire of the French on the plateau, was terribly costly. Soult now barred the way to Austerlitz, and the Allies turned southward towards Satzkirn. As they retreated, the ice of the Satzkirn pond was broken up by the French artillery, and many of the fugitives were drowned. The Allies lost 15,000 troops who were killed or wounded and 11,000 who were captured, while Napoleon lost 9,000. The remnants of the Allied army were scattered, and they abandoned more than 130 guns on the field. The French victory at Austerlitz was Napoleon's masterpiece. It dramatically reversed his military and politically dangerous situation and secured his imperial regime. It effectively spelled the end of the Third Coalition and gave Napoleon the initiative in Europe with which he was soon to obtain his greatest triumphs. Austrian Emperor Francis I signed an armistice on December 6, and the broken Russian army was withdrawn under a truce. And that wraps up our exploration of the Battle of Austerlitz. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video.